That's what I was waiting for, and it has come at last. Yes, the French president has confirmed that the attack in Nice was carried out by IS activists, IS bastards. So at last, the bastards of Allah have struck again. The dogs of Allah have struck again. And still, the leaders, the global leaders of the West are saying this has nothing to do with Islam. Are they afraid of Islam? Is that what it is? The whole Europe is reeling in fear of Islam. Is that what it is? Otherwise, what is stopping them from saying this has hell of a lot to do with Islam? Well, if it is a strategy to control the recruitment of terrorists by the IS and other terrorist organizations, then I'm saying it is not working. It's about time we should divide our strategy into different camps. Few of us must be brought to the front, and so that we can say that this ideology, as we know, Islam, is nothing but bastardism. And this bastardism is not peace. This bastardism is nothing better than piece of shit. So let us say that. Let us prove that theologically.
But terrorism, 9/11 for instance, according to classical Islamic law, is classified as hiraba, which carries the death penalty. Well, jihad is not the same as a militant perspective. Jihad just means the use of proportional force, which exists in most cultures, just war doctrine. Terrorism is something else. Terrorism is the arbitrary targeting of the innocent in order to place pressure on governments, which is something that doesn't have origins in Islamic culture or ethics and comes out of the French Revolution and certain 19th century anarchist movements that use terrorism. Its adoption in the Muslim world is very recent and is an expression of westernization. But terrorism, 9/11 for instance, according to classical Islamic law, is classified as hiraba, which carries the death penalty. So there isn't really an issue. The problem is people in the West don't know who speaks for Islam, and in most cases they don't even think that they should ask. Islam has leaders and muftis and Islamic universities that issue declarations on these things, but everybody's very vague about what Muslims actually think. So they know about Abu Qatada or whoever, but they don't know what the Mufti of Egypt is saying about anything. It's pretty hopeless, really. But then Muslims can also misunderstand what's going on in the Christian world.
So terrorism's a real thing, and if you want to deal with it, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to stop your own terrorism. So terrorism's a real thing, and if you want to deal with it, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to stop your own terrorism. And when the U.S. and Britain invaded Iraq, they were aware, that is very likely to increase terrorism. In fact, that was the analysis by intelligence agencies, experts, and so on. And it happened. Terrorism increased by a factor of 7 in the year following the invasion, according to U.S. government data. Well, yeah, but it's just not a high priority. So terrorism's a real thing, and if you want to deal with it, there's a couple of ways of doing it. One way is to stop your own terrorism. That makes a big dent in it. The other is to stop supporting the sources that encourage it. Another is to just to do what the British finally did in Ireland, pay a little bit of attention to the grievances that lead people to give at least sympathy or sometimes direct support for terrorism. And in those, the terrorists, of course, criminals, so find the criminals, apprehend them, give them fair trials, and so on. That's the way to do it. None of this is being done. Just take fair trials. There are people kidnapped, actually, they claim, captured in all over the place, Afghanistan, wherever they are. And they're sent to, we know where they're sent to. They're sent to Guantanamo, Abu Ghraib, Bagram, and so on, where they're tortured brutally, and that creates terrorists. In fact, the people on the ground who work there, the interrogators and others, the intelligence people, they say that Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo have probably created more terrorists than Osama bin Laden ever did. Yeah, sure, that's the way to do it if you want. But to say that they're trying to combat terrorism is just a joke.
There are some facts that Bill seems to love. When you hear them, it's going to blow your mind a bit, because the way you're told stories doesn't incorporate this information. Did you know that only 2% of all terrorist attacks were committed by Islamic groups or individuals? Like, I can't get my head around that, because I can't think what the other 98% are, because I never hear those stories about Buddhist or Christian attacks.
I know somebody in England who told me an extraordinary story about how, when he was only 14 years old, living as a non-Muslim in a part of England far from me, had a dream of a beautiful man who wore a green turban, had a smiling face, and when this teenager woke up, he felt that there was still some kind of interesting fragrance in the room, and he read and he read and he realized that it was Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he became Muslim, and he's now Hafiz of Quran, even though he's a convert to Islam. How that happened in his dream, this is part of the alam al-arwah, the secret world of the spirit consciousness, strange things that happen to people in sleeping or half-waking states, and Allahu a'lam as to how that works. But in Allah's generosity, anybody, even the likes of us, can hope one day to be pulled with Allah's net out of our dunya and given something better, inshallah.